people were starting to use this critical race theory is anti-white language. And I didn't really think too much of it at first because I was like, it makes sense if you don't understand critical race theory, it makes sense that you might think it's just anti-white. It totally I mean, listen, there's like the Coke be less white thing is a perfect example of this, right?
So here we have Karlyn admitting to everybody, admitting to us, okay, that whether you understand critical race theory or if you don't, you have no understanding whatsoever, that it's 100% evident and obvious to everybody on the planet who has a working brain that critical race theory is anti-white.
It makes sense that you might think it's just anti-white. It totally I mean, listen, there's like the Coke be less white thing is a perfect example of this, right?
And she admits this and says, yeah, even just look at the thing like where Coke said be less
The
white.
Coke be less white thing is a perfect example of this, right?
So 100% confirmed, without a doubt, anti-white. Critical race theory equals anti-white. It is. And Karlyn just admitted it herself right here. That critical race theory does equal anti-whitism. Ronaldo, white positive, good on you, brother. You don't have to put yourself on the line like folk like myself. We're on the front line. I'm running in politics. I'm a politician on the front line, fighting for our people worldwide. But there's heroes out there like Ronaldo, the soccer player, yeah? And all he had to do, he was smart. He didn't have to come out and speak out against anti-whites and put himself on the line, and threaten his own position, his career, his family, his safety, etc. by coming out as explicitly, openly white positive. But Ronaldo, the soccer player, he did something white positive and he helped folk like myself. Thank you, Ronaldo. You're a legend, brother. We notice it. Thank you, brother. And again, for all you other sports players out there, folk on the TV, on the news and stuff, who I know you're hearing what I'm saying. I know that what I say gets back into certain individuals who are running organisations. You run multi-million-dollar companies, right? Yous are the movers. Yous are the people in charge of the world. You have a responsibility, right? Ronaldo, freaking legend. You've set a great example, my brother. All he had to do was in a conference, he took a Coke bottle and he put it over to the side. And then he got a bottle of water instead. Coke stocks dropped $13 billion. So you want to be anti-white? You want to be against the white race? Well, that's what we're going to do to your companies. That's what we're going to do to your stocks. Okay, so think about that. If you run a business, you're like Coca-Cola, think about what you're doing, all right? Be wise. You want to lose everything? Well, be anti-white. Because we don't even have to expose ourselves. We got folk like Ronaldo, some of the most famous soccer players on the planet. And they don't even have to put their neck on the line because folk like me do that for them instead. And then he can make the stocks of Coke drop $13 billion. That's the power of white positive folk around the world working together to protect Western kind and the future generations. Karlyn admits that this is anti-whitism. Critical race theory definitely is anti-whitism because they promoted that idea of be less white. Okay?
The Coke be less white thing is a perfect example of this, right?
Now let's see what she has to say about this and if she contradicts herself to try to promote anti-whitism.
And so I was like, I was kind of paying attention to it, but I didn't really understand where it was coming from. And every time someone said critical race theory was anti-white, I would try to use it as like a moment to educate, to say...
Not educate, but indoctrinate folk into the anti-white narrative.
I understand it looks that way, but it's really racist towards all groups.
Huh? But racism doesn't actually exist, Karlyn. It's a made-up anti-white lie used to justify the harm of innocent members of Western kind.
Here's how it's racist towards African Americans. Here's how it's racist towards Latinos. Here's how it's racist towards Asian Americans, etc., etc.
The idea of racism towards this and that non-white minority group is quintessential anti-whitism.
So I always try to give people the broader context because critical race theory is racist.
No, Karlyn, actually, the very concept and idea of racism is critical race theory. Okay? So you can't say that critical race theory is racist, because racism only exists within critical race theory, which is the anti-white narrative. But in the real world, there's no such thing as racism. Okay? So anyone promoting that racism is a real thing is promoting the anti-white narrative in order to justify the harm of innocent members of Western kind and the child abuse of innocent white children. So no, I'm afraid if you try to say that racism is real and not just an anti-white lie of critical race theory, then you yourself expose yourself as just another anti-white bigot. Do you not understand how this works, Karlyn? It's really basic and everyone can fathom it. Children understand how this works. If you say that racism exists, you're an anti-white. And you're only saying that racism exists to create excuses to justify harming white people. And we all know this is a fact. That's why the anti-whites say you can only be racist against non-whites and you can't be racist against whites. Well, that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Yeah, well, because racism is white people existing. Okay? People being white positive and not accepting white erasure and being anti-white. Okay? So racism is only a concept, okay, within the anti-white critical race theory. Alright? Get that through your heads. So anybody who says racism is real is automatically anti-white. Okay? And especially if somebody's trying to say that critical race theory is racist. Okay? Because again, racism only exists inside critical race theory. That's where the idea comes from. Before critical race theory, before anti-whitism, there was no such thing as racism. It didn't exist. Critical race theory, anti-whites, okay, anti-whitism, invented the myth, the lie of racism, the boogeyman, okay, it's pretend, so that they can justify harming innocent members of Western kind and abusing white children. So that's all you need to know. Really basic. Anyone saying otherwise just exposes their own position. Those who agree and are against the concept racism and critical race, they're white positive, they're good people. Of all races, of all backgrounds, non-whites included. Okay? Plenty of non-white, white positive folk who are against anti-white bigotry. And they work with folk like myself. Okay? So if you're either white positive and you're against the idea of racism and critical race theory, etc., or you're an anti-white and you promote that anti-whitism. Really basic, really straightforward. Again, children can fathom this and understand it, so it's just a fact of the matter. If you're going around saying stuff's racist, well, you're just telling everybody that you're anti-white. Because that's what it means to believe in racism. It means you're an anti-white bigot.
But this kept coming up, and it was also really weird because people would get really angry if I tried to convince them that it wasn't just I mean, like, much more angry than you would think. And so this was something I was kind of like, what the hell's going on here?
So here, I'm just going to end it here because it's getting beyond a joke, alright? Karlyn is trying to pretend as if she doesn't understand why people are angry at her, okay? She's going around trying to defend and justify the evil child abuse of innocent white children. She's trying to make excuses for child abuse. She's trying to justify child abuse. She's trying to promote child abuse. And when parents of the children that are being abused come to her and say, "Excuse me, but you're promoting child abuse," that makes me really angry, because one of the children who's a part of that abuse that you're defending and promoting is my child. My child is being abused. And you're going around trying to justify and defend that abuse by saying that critical race theory is racism, and defending the anti-white narrative and promoting anti-white bigotry and hatred and the discrimination on the basis of my child's biospirit, who they are as a member of Western kind. Our white children are being abused, and you want to laugh it off and then make excuses and say that, no, actually our children should be abused. That's the right thing. And then you're confused as to why these parents are furious with you. They're angry. I wonder, it's so confusing, Karlyn. It wouldn't be the fact that you're literally in their face promoting the abuse of their children through saying nonsense, that racism is real, or critical race theory is racism. You're literally trying to promote the abuse of their children by saying those types of things. Lies. Known lies that are only promoted by anti-whites in the anti-white narrative to justify the harm of innocent members of Western kind and promote white erasure. The abuse of innocent children. And the parents of those children are coming to you and saying, no, you're not allowed to abuse our children. Sorry, we're not going to let you abuse our children. We're going to get really angry about it. How dare you try to molest our children? We're going to get really pissed off. Alright? We're just letting you know. You dare try to keep touching our kids? Keep molesting our kids? Whoa, we're going to get really fucking angry. If you don't understand why, maybe you should check yourself into a mental institution. Or crawl back into hell. Because that's the only two excuses. Yeah, Karlyn? Either you're satanic evil motherfucker from hell, who literally wants to abuse these children, or you're a freaking mental case and you can't understand how you're promoting child abuse to the parents of the children that are being abused. And then you'll try to gaslight them and ridicule them and make fun of them for defending their own children. Instead of just looking at yourself, reflecting on your own anti-whitism, and being like, holy crap, actually they're right, of course they're angry, I'm trying to abuse their kids. Of course, if I'm promoting the abuse of their children through saying stuff like racism is a real thing, or that critical race theory equals racism, and it's not just anti-whitism and nothing more, that you're abusing kids by saying that racism is real, right? That's it. You're either evil, straight from hell, or you have a mental problem. Because basic, straightforward stuff. Again, children understand this. It's not hard to comprehend. Racism doesn't exist. It's a lie made up to justify the harm of innocent Western kind, members of Western kind. Innocent white people have done nothing wrong. Alright? Before critical race theory, before the anti-white narrative, racism didn't exist. Do you know why? Because it's not real. It never has existed. It never will exist. It's a boogeyman. It's a myth. It's an excuse that anti-white bigots use, and only anti-white bigots, to justify the harm of innocent members of Western kind and the promotion of white erasure. Okay? And people are starting to understand that, Karlyn, alright? The parents, the everyday white parents, alright? All around the world, they're starting to understand how this works. That racism isn't real, okay? So if you keep telling them that it is, then that's what they're going to hate you. They're going to get a bit angry because we can see what you're really saying. Again, anybody who says racism is real is saying they want to promote the child abuse of innocent white children. And they're going to use the lie of racism to justify that child abuse. So keep telling the world that you're a fucking child abusing cunt. You're a child abuser. If you believe racism is a real thing, you're a child abuser. And the whole world's going to know. So pick a side. It's up to you, right? We're just letting you know how it works. If I was you, I'd pick the right side of history, and I'd be white positive, not a child-abusing satanic demon that's crawled out of the pits of hell, that believes in lies like racism. But hey, again, it's up to you. You do what you want to do, you be you. But the whole world is going to judge you on your choices and your decisions. Either you're a good person because you're white positive and you defend the white race, or you're a scum, monster, satanic child abuser and you believe in things like racism. Make your choice, Karlyn. Make your choice. If this is the hill you want to die on, this is the hill you're going to die on. That's your choice. Again, we're just letting you know what your options are and the reality of the situation. You don't have to be an anti-white bigot. You can stop pretending that racism exists and actually be a decent human being and help protect children. But again, it's up to you. So you do you. At the end of the day, I'm going to be a good person and not a scum like yourself, so take it easy.